Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. We're here for City Council meeting, and it is Monday, March 7th, 2022. We'll start this meeting with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Nordstrom.
Here.
Weifenbach. Here. Roberts. Here. Stroman. Here. Armstrong.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Lehman. Here. Solomon.
Here.
Evans. Here. Drew. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the invocation, and tonight that'll be performed by Randy Phipps. And following the invocation will be the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you for your participation tonight, and the City Council and Mayor, thank you for the opportunity we have to gather together and pray. That's the least we can do. Sometimes that's all we can do. And the freedoms that we have tonight, we're going to recognize that and pray for the Lord's blessing. So, Father, thank you once again that this is a day you've made, and we rejoice in it, and the opportunities that we have. Thank you for giving us authority to make decisions. Thank you for blessing this city council and this mayor, Lord God, with wisdom and discernment, and that they would have great insight into what is best for not only this city, but for the citizens as we progress forward, Lord God. We do enjoy this place. We are blessed to count this as our hometown, Lord God, and pray over our citizens as well, Lord God. And we're reminded even in the midst of a war going on in Ukraine, how valuable freedom is. And we do pray over Ukraine tonight as well, where they can't do what we're doing. Help there be resolution to that war and to that conflict, Lord God, that, as I said earlier, we may not be able to do anything directly, but we can pray. And we do pray for your peace that passes understanding, and bless this night. In your name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. And now on to the adoption of the agenda. This is a time when the council may adopt the agenda as written, or they may make certain alterations to it. Would there be a motion? Motion to approve by Pat Jones and a second by Jason Solomon. All in favor of approving the agenda tonight, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. And now, for awards and recognitions, I'd like to just take a moment of privilege here and read a proclamation supporting the people of Ukraine. And I would like to invite the City Council to come down, gather around. And I think it would be nice if we also invited our friends, our fellow Rapid Cityans who have ties to Ukraine to come up as well. Yeah, come on in. This is a proclamation supporting the people of Ukraine. Whereas on January 21st, 1990, more than 300,000 Ukrainians called for unity and independence from the Soviet Union by forming a human chain between the cities of Kiev and Ivano-Frankivsk. And whereas, did you laugh? I'm nervous now all of a sudden. And whereas on December 1st, 1991, more than 90% of Ukrainian citizens voted in a national referendum in support of independence, with majorities in every region. And whereas the Russian Federation has a history of military invasion into the country of Ukraine, instigating violence, stoking conflict, and spreading disinformation on Ukrainian soil. And whereas the Russian military conducted a large-scale buildup in and around Ukraine in March and April 2021 under the guise of military exercises. And whereas the Russian military initiated its most recent, much larger military buildup in October 2021 that culminated in approximately 190,000 troops by the time of Russia's renewed full-scale incursion on February 24th, 2022. And whereas on February 24th, 2022, Russian forces, enabled by Belarus, launched its unprovoked, full-scale, renewed invasion of a peaceful, independent country, Ukraine. And whereas it is the right of all countries to decide their own future, foreign policy, and security arrangements free from outside interference or coercion. And whereas Russian forces have targeted civilians and have committed war crimes and crimes against humanity resulting in the loss of innocent life and immeasurable damage to the people and the country of Ukraine. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the City of Rapid City supports unequivocally Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity and stands steadfastly, staunchly, proudly, and fervently behind the Ukrainian people, both in the country of Ukraine and in other parts of the world, including those Ukrainians and people of Ukrainian descent who live in Rapid City, in their fight against the authoritarian Putin regime. And we call for the immediate ceasefire and withdrawal of Russian forces from the sovereign country of Ukraine. So now I'd like to introduce Greg Stroman to come up and make an introduction.
Thank you, Mayor. I was contacted by one of my neighbors and constituents, Andre Makar, and he asked me if there would be an opportunity for a show of support for Ukraine from the City Council. And I invited him here tonight, and if he would like to say a few words, I'd invite him to do so.
Just a few words.
Okay.
I don't know many.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to let you know that Ukraine is in a full-scale war with Russia. Ukraine didn't provoke Russia. They just, this Putin, that sick man, decided to bomb, to punish Ukrainians because they just wanted to live their way in democracy, in a free market, and not like in Russia, in dictatorship. That's why he decided to punish them, but Ukraine wasn't the first country that Putin and Russia first although it was in 1990. Then in 2008, next two parts of Georgia, European Georgia. It was Abkhazia and South Ossetia. Then in 2014, Russia annexed two parts of Ukraine, Crimea and Donbass. And the only reason, I think, that's because Putin and his circle didn't want those countries to be democratic, to develop independently, and to live good like other Western countries, United States and Canada. So finally, West threw a lot of sanctions on Russia. But look, unfortunately, it's a little too late. And now those sanctions, yeah, they will make Russians suffer. But Ukrainian people are dying faster than those sanctions work. I hope all the world understand that that's not the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. That's the conflict between Russia and the rest of the world. And hopefully the world will understand it, and we all will punish Putin and take him to Nuremberg, to the court, finally. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for indulging us in that. We're just going to stay up here and have a photograph with these fine folks, and then we'll get on with the meeting. Or anyone else have anything to say? Okay. Thank you. Okay, we have a couple of presentations on the agenda tonight. The first one is by the Monument Executive Director, Craig Baltzer.
Thank you, Mayor. And I really want to thank Council for inviting me today. I didn't realize until you invited me, it's been since we were 70% completion of the construction the last time I visited you about this project. But this is good because we've now had some events under our belt, and we can report a little bit to you about that as well. Let's go to my first slide here. So I won't go through all the timelines and everything. Probably the important thing here is to remember is that we opened our building with our open house, our new Summit Arena, in October 23. Shortly after that, we started doing events, and it feels like it's been kind of crazy since then. So in the current status of the operation of construction of the building, we are still working on some things. We are going through the punch list items, continue to do that. A lot of these are simple things like the wrong paint on that wall and that kind of stuff. We're going through that with the contractors. And also warranty work, a piece of equipment not operating the way it's supposed to, or it's programmed wrong, or maybe it came shipped in and was broken and things like that. So we're going through all of that work on all the things in the building. But I just want to point out we are operating events, and we are full scale operation of events in there and have been since October. You know, when we talk to you about this building, we often talked about the flexibility of this building, and we often talked about design versus operation. We wanted to make sure that this building operated well first. And I could show you a lot of different things. I'm not going to take all your time today, but today I decided to focus on a couple things. One is our concourse, and how the food and beverage and the bars work in the concourse. You can see here we're showing a number of our concessions, our food and beverage areas, our little restaurants. We are pushing a premium product along with hot dogs and nachos. So we're trying to give more variety to people. It is showing in our sales. We're selling more per person than we have in the past. As you can see in this photograph, we've got high steaks, which is steak tips. We've got down in the lower right, that one you can't read, but it's the carvery. That's prime rib sandwiches and big meat turkey sandwiches. We've got a little Asian fusion with rice bowls and noodle bowls. We've got the big cheesy with mac and cheese bowls with whatever topping you want. And Rock and Rooster, which is a lot of kid-friendly things, chicken strips and things like that. On top of it, you can get a hot dog and nachos at most all these stands, but what we're trying to do is show folks that we do a lot more than hot dogs and nachos. The bottom left is showing the peak market, and that is kind of new idea in arenas today. That is something like you would see in an airport. That is a quick mart, like a little convenience store. You walk in, grab prepackaged food. There's probably usually going to be some healthy offerings in there as well, and it's all prepackaged food, which during COVID, prepackaged was a big deal. So this kind of shows you the concourse at those areas in operation. We are learning as we go along with the new arena ourselves. One of the things I like to point out is that the upper left really shows us the line of people at the concession stand stretches across the concourse, and if I purchase just a little bit of velvet rope, we can get those lines directed in the direction we want to. So we're learning some things here, but you can see that there is plenty of room in the concourse. When we have our larger events, it does get a little bit crowded, and it should. The bottom picture in this one, I want to point this out. This is something Coca-Cola helped us out with. All of our concession stands, when we serve sodas in our normal concession stands in the past, it takes 2 people just to pour sodas in every concession stand. So Coca-Cola helped us out with these soda units. What we do at the concession stand is with your food, you get sold a cup, and then you go and fill your own soda, and there's a QR code, and you scan the QR code, and you can fill your own soda. Now, the beautiful thing on this is it's a benefit to both folks. The general public, when they're buying a soda, they get to refill now. They can scan, drink their soda, come back, and refill. That never could happen before. The benefit to us is lower labor in our concession stands. So that's just a cool little feature we got. Like the food areas, we wanted to build some socializing areas. We actually have 3 private clubs in the building. The bottom right-hand corner shows you one of the clubs that we have that's private. These take the place of suites. You can buy tickets in there. Rather than suites, these clubs allow us to sell the tickets in different ways. Suites are almost entirely sold corporately. A club like this, we can sell to individuals on the night of, things like that. So it gives us a lot more flexibility in selling it. We've got 3 of those areas, but we also have 2 areas, kind of club areas for the general public. And we wanted to build these socializing areas where people can meet their neighbors, see friends from across the arena, meet up at a bar, still not miss the event because it's open to the event below. We wanted to create those areas rather than be greedy and just stick more seats in to make it more valuable to our consumers here. So that's just showing that. In the next picture, we'll show you some of those areas in operation during real events this year. I can tell you that Bud Light Lounge back there, it is packed in that picture, all the way deep back in there. So there were really popular places to attend. Another thing I wanted to point out about flexibility, we often talked about this, design versus operation. We put a lot of money into systems like this, but this is truly the system of us being able to size the room in different ways, shapes, and forms. And we do that with curtaining systems and telescopic seating. And the top two pictures are showing rodeos, but those are two different rodeo nights. One's a weaker night in rodeo, and one is a full-blown sold-out rodeo event. The weaker night in rodeo was a weeknight, and we were expecting to only use the lower bowl. As you can see, we did open the upper bowl on the one side, but in the far back, behind the scoreboard back there, you can see a curtain covering the upper bowl seating. And that shows you how flexible it can be, because not only can we use that upper bowl curtaining, we can use it in certain areas and still open up some of the upper bowl. On the rodeo events, they were not using telescopic seating down low. The next one you see is a concert where we use all of the upper bowl curtaining system, or most of it, and, but all the telescopics are being used and all the floor seating is being used. So we're able to get to the right number of people for that show, or seats for that show, that the promoter wanted to put in. So that's what that photograph represents. This next one shows a few different ways of using telescopics and curtaining systems. The first picture on the upper left is full-blown, no curtain system, and all the telescopics being in use, and this is obviously before the event started, but that shows that. If you go down to the bottom right, that shows all of our curtaining systems in use, both the half-house curtain cutting the arena floor in half, and then you can see that curtain behind the scoreboard there, and the upper deck curtaining system, which was able to allow us to size this building down to less than, just right about 3,000 with the setup that this promoter had for his event. This is the MMA fighting event. The promoter was expecting 2,000, and we did well over 2,000, but we made it look nice and tight and full and dressed the house beautifully. Again, you'll see a concert there using the lower bowl, and I think that picture in the upper right is All-State Choir and Orchestra, which is really unique. The bottom left-hand picture of that, bottom left-hand corner of that picture shows the choir sitting on one side, the orchestra sitting on the floor, and the audience sitting on the opposite side. So we have a lot of flexibility in the way we present events in this building. So, so far to date, we've had 18 events, but don't let that fool you. That 18 events is events ticks in our calendar. That represents 34 event days, as many of those events were multiple day events. And the 62 days represents how many days were taken off our calendar since we opened the building. 62 days because many of these events need extra days to load in or rehearse or load out. These are days that are unusable in the building for that. So we're actually doing very well with the number of events at this point in that venue. I just wanted to put a list up of the events that we've had. Not all of them are publicly marketed because they're private events. A lot of them are public events, but just so you could see what we had in there. Just last week we had monster trucks, so we were learning how to do a monster truck show in that building, which was a lot of fun. We had a few concerts in there already, L&I basketball, so high school basketball, high school volleyball has already been in there. We had a wrestling tournament in there, and MMA fighting, so we've done a number of different things already in there. This is my favorite slide to show you. I do want to say that this is for the Summit Arena only, not the rest of the monument, just the Summit Arena. This is a heat map where our ticket buyers and attendance, people attending events at the Summit Arena have come from so far. And I want to point out that we've got a lot of action going up in the north central part of the United States, as you would expect, but I don't know if everybody expects that we draw from a wide of area as we do up there. The other thing I want to point out on the big map on the left is that there are only 2 states that have not shown up at any of our events so far, and we've only been open for a little while. And that is Hawaii and Alabama for some reason. We haven't gotten anybody from Alabama yet. Hopefully by next year we can get somebody from Alabama to our venue. If you look to the right is kind of a blown-up version of the heat signatures of ticket buyers and attendees going to our events. And you can see that there's a large amount of people coming from the east side of the state, even southwestern Minnesota, northwestern Iowa. A big chunk of people coming from that area. I think these are our high school tournaments. I think the rodeo contributed to that a lot. But it just shows you how wide of an area we hit. Probably the most surprising thing to me on this map, because not a lot is that surprising to me, but look at the heat signature by the Denver area, and that's not high school events coming up from there. That is outstanding. So we do attract from outside. Anybody who thinks we don't drive an economic impact, we drive a huge economic impact. And that's just the Summit Arena, not the rest of the venue. Just wanted to point out a few events that we got coming up for the next couple months. This is, again, just the Summit Arena, not everything I've got going on in the entire facilities over there. But we've got a number of things going on. I'd like to, Toby Mac is this week. That's Thursday night. We got Marshall's football starting up with their preseason game. Harlem Globetrotters is coming. Chicago, the band. We've got Morgan Wallen coming up. That's probably the biggest country concert in the nation right now touring. So we've got that coming. And I'll have more to come. You all know that indoor arenas, indoor venues slow down in the summer. Our summer is really July and August. It's not the whole summer long. We're pretty busy through June. But we will be announcing more things as we go forward here, and certainly for next fall. And with that, I wanted to, before I say thank you, the number one question I get is, what's my biggest issue at the monument? And my biggest issue by far and away is labor. We've been very, very busy down there. I'm working people. I have a number of people who haven't had a day off since before stock show. We're working them 60, 70, 80 hours a week. I got some people with over 100 weeks and multiple weeks going on. Probably the biggest area for me in labor is my operations crew. This is what the public doesn't see. They see the ushers and security and the people selling concessions and taking tickets. What they don't see is the conversions that happen overnight and the cleaning of these venues, getting ready for the next day. We have a huge labor issue, and I need to take care of my staff. They've been extremely dedicated, and they've been covering it. So we're going to have to get creative. But unless anybody's got a crystal ball telling me the labor problem will be solved by next year, we need to think a little bit differently in how we're going to handle all that. It's been a lot, and it's been almost too much. And I really like to point out the heroes that we have down there that dedicated their time to work there. We need to add staff, and I can't fill the current crews that I have, let alone adding more crews to it. So I just wanted to let you know that's probably my biggest issue. If you guys have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer any at this point in time.
Greg Stroman.
I'd just like to congratulate Craig and his staff they do a phenomenal job at the Civic Center, and it's not just talk. He can back it up. They make a science out of it, and they're experts in economics, and I just think they're doing a whale of a job, and I think they should be congratulated for that. I just really appreciate all their hard work.
Thank you for the comments.
Jones.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I received a phone call the other day from a gentleman in my ward. He had questions about events that would be coming or not be coming to the monument, and wanted to know why we were getting this or not getting this, et cetera. And so I encouraged him to call Mr. Balzer and talk to him about it. Go to the source. And so this gentleman did, and they had a great conversation, about 45 minutes, Craig, and he called me back and said that, wow, what a great guy this Craig guy is, and we need to keep him around here, and he really explained it to me well. So it's not as easy to go out and get concerts and events and things as a lot of people think it might be. It takes a tremendous amount of behind-the-scenes work, and I encourage anyone who has questions about what goes on out there to call. Sorry, you may get a lot of phone calls, but that's okay. We're public servants, and that's why we're here. But you know, it's wide open, and if you have questions about those kinds of things, please ask, because this facility is doing fantastic things for the city. Wonderful to see that I-90 goes both ways and not just one way. So that's very exciting to see. So thank you, Craig, and to all your staff for everything that you're doing. And I encourage people, if they have questions about events or what's going on, to ask them and not just sit and get mad or grumbly about, well, why can't we have this, why can't we have that? Ask the questions, find out why, find out what's going on. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig.
Thank you very much, everyone.
The next presentation is from Shannon Rittberger, the Director of the Pennington County Department of Equalization.
I just pushed the arrow button.
Okay, all right, cool, thank you. Good evening, Shannon Rittberger. I am the Director of Equalization for Pennington County, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'd like to address a huge concern of a lot of residents of the county and the city. At this time of year, it's property assessments and how the rising real estate market and rising property assessments are going to impact taxes next year. So I want to start with the steps in the assessment and tax process, and the first step is the step that I do. I have to appraise or assess all properties at full market value in Pennington County. State law requires full market value, not a percentage of. So when you receive your assessment notice, that value there is what we think your property is worth. When we've mailed the assessments, then we start the appeal process, and that's where we're at right now. And then in April, the county commissioners will approve or deny all applications for exemptions from property tax. And at that point, we have set the total taxable value for the city, for the county. Now, that's step one. And step two then, this is where you have a part in it, where every taxing entity has to set their budgets, the amount of property tax that they're going to collect from that total taxable valuation. Now, not every taxing entity, the budget of every taxing entity is entirely property tax. Of course, the city's budget is a minority of property tax. Sales tax makes up a big part of that. But every taxing entity meets to hold those budget hearings. And then we know how much taxes are going to be collected from the available taxable valuation. And the mathematical factor that gives us those taxes from that value is the levy. We calculate that at the end of the year, then we print and we mail tax bills, and taxes are paid the following year. This is really the heart of what I wanted to present here. The governing boards, the city council, the county commission, the school board, and well over 200 taxing districts in Pennington County hold these budget hearings, and they set their budget. Their budgets are determined by the cost of the services that they provide. And this is really where taxes are set. Taxes are not determined by the real estate market. Taxes are determined by the budgets of the taxing entities. And all of you know that your budgets are restricted in what they can change from one year to next. You know that your budget can only increase by 3% or the consumer price index, whichever's less. So only 3% more money than what you had last year. Or you can, and you can raise your budget by the amount of taxes that new property will pay. That brand new house that was built that is paying taxes for the first time this year. You can raise your budget by the amount of equal to the taxes that that new property will pay. That's new property being added to the budget. That doesn't increase the levy on the rest of us that have been paying tax, but that 3% increase in your budget does increase the levy on everybody else. And of course, then there's the option for an opt-out. Any taxing entity can opt out of these statutory caps, and they could be referred to a vote and killed by the voters. Here is a simple formula that shows how the levy is calculated. We hear a lot that politicians will set the levy. And in South Dakota, the politicians don't do that. The elected officials set the budget that they're going to collect. The county assessor's office sets the total taxable valuation. The levy is just simply a mathematical result. And this is an example of numbers. They're not real, but they're reasonable. The levy is 0.014. That's the factor that will give us $1 million in property taxes out of the $70 million in available valuation. And I was asked to provide an example to show what would happen if the budget request were increased by 3% and the total taxable valuation were increased by 25%. In that situation, the levy would have to decrease 17%. If the total taxable value increased by 25%, there would be a flood of money to the taxing entities if the levy were not to decrease. But that can't happen because those budgets are capped, so the levy has to go down. Here's an example of a specific property in the same situation. So a taxable value on a specific property, say a house, increases 25%, the same as the total valuation increased. Well, the levy went down 17%. So the total tax on that one property will increase 3%. And really, this is something I've been trying to tell people for the last couple of weeks. We are in a situation where our market has increased more than what the taxing entities can increase their budgets. I will tell people that your tax probably will go up next year. The taxing entities probably will increase their budgets. But your tax can't go up in this situation as much as the assessment went up because of those caps on the budgets. Taxes increase when budgets increase. Taxes don't increase when assessments increase, because even if our market was going down and assessed values went down, if that were to happen, and if our market went down, assessed values would go down. If our market went down, the taxing entities are still going to collect the budget they budgeted for. There's still cost of providing government services. So even in a decreasing market, those taxes will be collected. A significant increase in the market does not result in a windfall to the taxing entities. Property taxes are budgeted based on need, regardless of the change in the assessment. And the situation we're facing this year is that our market has gone up significant. In the years past, a 3, 4, maybe 5% increase in our real estate market was normal, and we've exceeded that last year and this year especially, and maybe we're looking at the same thing next year. But taxes can't increase like our market is increasing because of those statutory caps to the budgets. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you, Shannon. I have a question. There's been a lot of calls and emails coming in lately about the 3% maximum budget increase you spoke of. And so to clarify, this is a 3% maximum on the amount of the taxing entities' budgets? Is that correct?
That is correct. Not on a specific property tax bill, but on what the taxing entities can collect in their budget request. Different properties will change differently. If the average overall taxable valuation increased 25%, but your property assessment increased 50%, it increased more than the average. Your tax bill will increase then more than the average of the other properties. And the opposite effect if it did not increase as much as the average.
Okay, thank you. Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Shannon, this excellent PowerPoint.
Thank you.
Can you make this available to us, if you mind, if we share it? I mean, we have,
Please
entertained
do.
myself the last couple of weeks on Facebook watching all the, people go back and forth about the questions that you answered pretty pointedly here. I appreciate that. And the other question I have, I know that when you do an assessed value, and what confuses constituents or citizens sometimes is the factored value. Can you give a little bit of an explanation on factored value, how that plays out?
A little bit of an explanation. So the assessment notice has assessed value, full market value. Your tax bill has the taxable value, which is in Pennington County less than assessed value. Taxable value in Pennington County depends on, in every county in the state, depends on the taxable factor we get from the state of South Dakota. In Pennington County, taxable value tends to be near 88% of assessed value. and taxable value is what the levy is multiplied against. It has to do with an audit of the accuracy of our assessment by the state of South Dakota. They give us a factor to reduce whatever our level of assessment is down to 85% of market value. Every county is audited, every county gets a factor. The factor depends on their level of assessment to reduce every county to 85%. Pennington County tends to have a level of assessment between 96 and 98% of market value, so our factor is around 88% every year.
I appreciate that. And so there was an appeals process coming up that people ask about. You've lined it out on the information you give us here on the dais. And so if someone appeals their assessment, I think that's something that maybe they should know, is the fact that their values have gone up. These values are from November. Is that correct, Shannon?
The assessment date is November 1st of last year.
So the appraised values are set in November. And then do you appraise every property in Rapid City?
Every property in Pennington County, including
Yeah,
Rapid City.
I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Pauline Sumption.
I was just going to let you guys know that I do have this presentation. I was just waiting until after he had the opportunity to give it to you, so questions could be answered in conjunction with, but I will more than be happy to send it out to you guys.
Thank you. Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Shannon. Thanks for the presentation. First of all, appreciate that explanation. I think some folks, if they appeal, they may use their own appraisal of sorts. Maybe they're contacting appraisers or realtors or something like that. Is that a valid piece of information to bring along? Was that something you would suggest to somebody appealing?
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay. Number two, I know a lot of nonprofits received a notice this year when they haven't in the past. Why did that happen?
And I should have included that in the presentation, and I apologize. Something we have not done in the past is mail an assessment notice to the properties that are exempt from property tax. Properties are not exempt until the county commission approves or denies all applications for exemption, and that's done every year. So a nonprofit, the Catholic Church, the main Catholic cathedral downtown here, is an exempt property and will probably be exempt this year and next year. But if the commission were to deny an exemption, then suddenly the assessment of that property becomes important. And every property owner has the right to know what their property is assessed for. So this year we mailed out assessment notices to all properties, whether they are exempt or not. The county commission will act on those applications for exemption, and the Catholic Church will probably be exempt. But at least up front, they know what that value would be if they were to pay property tax.
So the assumption that nonprofits were exempt is actually not true. It is up to the whims of that year's county commission?
There is a statutory process where a nonprofit has to apply for exemption, meet the criteria, and that is approved or denied when the County Board of Equalization meets in April. Okay. There is a list published in the newspaper of every property owner that applies for exemption, so even the public knows ahead of time who's made application for that.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
I think that's all the questions we have. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, now on to general public comment. This is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at this meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. I have a few speaker request forms, and all the speakers tonight should know that they have 3 minutes to speak to the council, and you can watch these lights up here to see how you're doing on time. First one for general public comments, Chuck Henry.
Been a while. Just like, I'm Craig. me and him do have a conversation once in a while, especially when they're building the Summit Arena. Besides looking at it, it's great. I went to, I think it was the first big concert they had in there for King and Country. I was checking out the south side, because that's basically the side I was on, for ADA compliance, and I love their elevators. So for Toby Mac, I'm going to be on the north side. Now I got that done. Also, I'd like to thank the mayor for picking me to be on the interior design committee. I believe because ADA was very important to me. And that's about it for that.
Okay, thank you. Next, Clayton Heeb.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I have pictures here to send around. If somebody would take them and pass them on. You may keep one of the paper ones, but please give me the framed one back. Just a couple questions. One, the World War II monument that used to be in Haley Park disappeared. Does anybody know where it went, what happened? We would sure love to know that. But so far, nobody seems to know anything or will admit knowing anything. I'm not here to holler and scream at anybody. It would just be nice to know what happened to it. Okay, the second thing, that picture, the frame picture that's going around, that one there is the monument going up for all the members of Pennington County that died in wars. Now the city and the Parks and Recreation Department have already agreed to give the land and keep up the property around it. We are going to make sure the flags and everything are good. What I'm asking the City Council, since it's going to be a tourist attraction also, is would you guys be willing to donate a few bucks towards building this? It's a $100,000 project, and we've got right on a little over half collected. And it would sure be nice if the city would say, hey, here's $500,000. Okay, I'm daydreaming. If the city was kicking a few $1,000s or a few $100s. So please consider it, think about it, and maybe donate to it, because that's going to be a monument for all your relatives, friends, et cetera, that died in all the wars, and hopefully we never have to add to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Clayton. Chuck Jasper.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I'm Chuck Jasper. I live in Ward 1. I'm here representing myself and my, you might call it cockamamie idea, but I'll let you know what I'm thinking about. I went to my granddaughter's soccer tournament this weekend in the Civic Center area. I got lucky and found fairly close to parking spots out of the 3 times I went. Third time I had to walk quite a way. While I was there, I heard quite a bit of grumbling and mumbling about the parking situation. As I was leaving Saturday night, about 8:30, and Saturday, as I understand, there were 3 different events taking place, and the soccer tournament was just one of them. As I was leaving, a lady was standing by the door, and she says, you know what we really need is a parking ramp. I told her, you know, I've been advocating that for several years. Now, I've provided each of you with a handout giving you my ideas on what we can do as far as a parking ramp. And I've also included a letter that I sent to the Rapid City Journal in February of 2003, excuse me, as well as provided it to the mayor in February of 2003. October of 2017, I presented another letter to your present mayor along with that previous letter, but I've never received any feedback from anyone regarding my suggestions. Well, what I'm suggesting is, to kind of paraphrase Kevin Costner, if you build one, they will use it, meaning the public. Now, in what I've outlined to you, I've indicated a way that you might be able to finance this with a bond issue, where it could be built, and how it, I think, would have minimum impact in our present parking situation. You could provide amenities for electric cars. You could put in an elevator. You could put a skyway from this parking ramp to the Civic Center or to the hotel that's in the parking lot. And another way of helping to finance would be to put a surcharge on every motel or hotel reservation in the parking lot. Anyway, I'm willing to discuss this with any one of you at any point in the future. My contact information is on my letters. Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us through general public comment and now to non-public hearing items, items 3 through 46. And we'll open up public comment on items 3 through 42. First speaker is Chuck Henry on multiple items.
That's one way to say it. Oh, great. I just love computers. Okay, number 7. Rapid Transit wants some more money from a grant. But do you know how the BS that the drivers have to put through? I think Megan and her crew needs to drive the buses once in a while and see what their drivers go through. And I challenge the city council, why don't you ride once in a while on it and see what the drivers go through? They go through a lot and they don't get paid enough. And that's why they're having a hard time retaining drivers. Okay, we'll start on the big list that you guys had. I was reading the money which was going to be used, found out, it upset me. Pennington County Housing, which I live in one of the housing units, they're expecting money for their 5-year plan to do stuff at all the housing units. Right now at my housing units, I hear complaints about people messing with people's cars because the lighting out there is not too great and we don't have cameras. But they don't want to do anything about it to 2024. They need to use some of the money. I've heard they've got $2 million in the bank. They need to do something about this, about the housing they have now, instead of looking at building another housing apartment buildings. Plus, when they applied for this money, they didn't put an amount that they want down on it. So I don't think they even should pass. And there's some things that are on that list that the state takes care of and the county takes care of. Why aren't the county taking care of all the, like the sheriff's department, the Health and Human Services and that? Then you got DSS on it. Hey, they're in the state budget. And there's a lot more I could say, but my time's about out. Thank you.
Thank you. And that'll bring a close to the public comment period. Next up on the agenda is consent items 3 through 42. Would the council like to approve all of these items at once or take some of them separately? Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Could I pull items number 15 and 37, please?
Okay, anyone else? If not, could we have a motion to approve the consent items with the exception of 15 and 37?
So moved.
Motion by Lehman, second by Evans. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 15, authorize Mayor and Finance Director to sign Amendment 1 between the City of Rapid City and Long Branch Civil Engineering for Southeast Area Trunk Sewer Reconstruction, Elm Avenue to Prairie Avenue project, in the amount of $380,890. Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. May I direct a question to Director Tech, please?
Yes.
Mr. Tech, could you kind of give us an overall view of what this particular project is going to do for our ward down there in Ward 2? And it's a big deal down there for us, so could you give us an overview?
Certainly. The primary purpose for this project is to replace and upgrade approximately 3,500 foot of larger diameter sanitary sewer main. Previous issues identified in the area, previous preliminary engineering studies have identified that the 12-inch sewer main needs to be upsized to an 18-inch sewer main, approximately from Prairie Avenue down to Elm Avenue. So that's the primary purpose of this project. During the design phase, there will also be a look at the water system. Certainly the sewer is typically laid the deepest, so when we go into reconstruct, the sewer will look at the impacts to the water mains in the area, and a good portion of the water mains along this project are cast iron, so they are reaching the end of their useful life. We'll evaluate whether or not they should be replaced also. In addition to that, any opportunities that we have certainly to do ADA upgrades along the corridors that we touch, as well as some drainage improvements as we can as we're going along with the project. So those are the main functions of this project, and the design services we'll have up until the end of next year to complete, and then we'll have a biddable project after that.
Thank you, Mr. Tech. Could I follow up, please?
Yes.
Mr. Tech, could you repeat the part about this is just the design phase of this?
Correct. This contract is a design contract.
Yes.
So, as I said, there have been previous looks at, in this area, what the deficiencies are, what needs to be done, and where it needs to be done. Now that that has been identified, it's time to actually design a project to be built to take care of the issues that I previously identified.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And then once we get the design put in place, then we'll have a little better idea what phases or what next is going to be in line for the next projects. Am I saying that correctly? So it just tells us what should be our priorities.
Yeah, we've identified the priority. It's now
okay.
a question of getting it designed, getting it constructed, and moving on.
Thank you. I yield.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Lance Lehman, second by Jason Solomon. All in favor of approving item 15, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 37, approve the CDBG program section 3 plan. Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. I see Michelle Schulke is in the audience. If I could direct a question or comments to her, please.
Okay.
I'm still trying to get a handle on your new title, so I worked out an acronym. I'll have to share it with you later. I am really excited about seeing this program, the program Section 3 plan coming forward. That gives us a lot of opportunities for what in my mind, for housing, especially for the people that would not be able to make it into the 1/3 of their income area. Could you kind of give us a little bit of an overview of what this program Section 3 plan is all about?
Of course. Mr. Mayor?
Please.
Section 3 is a provision that we must follow in administering the Community Development Block Grant Program. Section 3 was always a requirement, but there has been a rule change, and with that rule change, we decided to create a Section 3 plan. So our subrecipients, those receiving the CDBG money, and the contractors that build or renovate properties understand their requirements. And so this is not necessarily a plan, but rather a provision of the Housing and Urban Development Act of 1968. It's a provision that affords employment, training, and contracting opportunities primarily to low and extremely low income people.
That was the section I was really interested in, is the public housing financial assistance. And it took me to another 24 CFR section, and I thought that was an interesting read as well. And then could you explain a little bit deeper about what is public housing financial assistance?
Certainly. There are there's three different categories that may or may not trigger Section 3. And so public housing financial assistance is basically that if any federal funding is provided to public housing, it triggers Section 3. We'll primarily be operating under the Housing and Community Development Financial Assistance, and that's triggered when $200,000 of HUD money, not just the CDBG money, but HUD money is involved in a project. And so if we were to fund or collaborate on a project with the Public Housing Authority, Section 3 will be triggered. But again, primarily it'll be for our larger construction and reconstruction projects where we'll follow the Section 3 plan, and there'll be a lot of outreach to not only low-income residents, but low-income residents within a mile of the project, or if the population is less than $5,000, we basically expand that circle to encompass 5,000 people and do a targeted approach to let them know there's a project and potentially employment opportunities to work on that project.
And one final question for you has to do with the committee that you have that's helping you out making the decisions, determinations, who gets what grants and so on. Will they be playing a role in this Section 3 plan?
I appreciate that. We have two members in the audience today, Liz Handbook and Alan Solano. Yes, when they're vetting their projects, they do a very thorough process in understanding the capacity of the organization. And so this will be a requirement going forward, is the subrecipients must demonstrate that they're willing and able to follow this Section 3, and then we'll do the technical assistance and provide training and work through that, because it's fairly new for us too, and we'll work through the kinks. But that is something that they'll be looking at in future applications.
Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have. Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate the explanation.
Thank you. Could use a motion on item 37. Motion to approve by Weifenbach, was it? And a second by Stroman. All in favor of approval of 37, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And that takes us to the end of consent. So non-consent items 43 through 46. We'll open public comment on these items. We have one speaker request from Chuck Henry on item number 44.
I gotta get Alan on this. Alan, when he was working at BMS, I bugged him a lot. Really a lot. Now I don't know how to bug him anymore. Okay. One thing I want to mention, I am not against the programs for homeless people. I am not. But it's where the money goes, the people that have the money, like Pennington County Housing, where they need to fix the buildings they already got up. Okay, the employee handbook, which is probably basically handed out to the non-union employees that can't fight it like the unions do, needs to say exactly how much they're going to make, and even ask them. I know with Rapid Transit, new drivers ride with Rapid Ride, and I was on the bus one time with a new driver on Coolidge, as a matter of fact, And she was going to go like it was going north instead of south. I had to remind her that. Some of these drivers don't get enough training. To me, they need to ride all 5 buses, and if possible, drive all 5 buses when the normal driver is there to retain. And I've talked about this before, and I'm glad it's happening in Southwest Rapid City now, where people won't complain on how much time it takes for the police to get to them after they call them. So that's going to be a great building to use. Thank you.
Thank you. And that'll close public comment period. And we will start then under ordinances, item 43. First reading of ordinance 6533 regarding supplemental appropriation number 1 for 2022. Motion to approve, Jones. Second, Lehman. All in favor of approving item 43, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Under Legal Finance Committee items, item number 44, adoption of the updated non-union guide and employee handbook. This has been continued a few different times. Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I direct a question to our city attorney real quick?
Yes.
Joel, listed on the city council agenda, when you click the link, it actually takes you to legal finance agenda link from the city council agenda to the legal and finance, and then you have to find the handbook. Is that inappropriate in terms of public notice and accessibility? Just want to make sure that we're doing things correctly procedurally.
Joel Andine.
Well, I mean, it's certainly not ideal. This is the first I've heard of that. So, but ultimately you were able to, if you click the link, find the agenda item, correct?
Yes, unless it's not the most revised version or something like that. But yeah, that was.
Then I think it would be all right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Use a motion, Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the motion to adopt the updated non-union guide and employee handbook.
Okay. Second by Evans. All right. Seeing no discussion, Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make sure that we understand that this has the particular verbiage that we talked about at Legal and Finance has been removed from the handbook. So if they could include that within the motion? Sure.
You mean to make the motion to approve and acknowledge the changed verbiage from the Legal Finance Committee meeting?
Thank you. Yeah, that strips out the talk about the health care.
Correct.
Or health insurance. Yeah, I'm okay with that, removing the health insurance portion of that.
Okay.
And if we need, we can have Nick Stroop kind of explain that a little bit further, so.
Okay. The motion is amended slightly to reflect different updated language under health care in the non-union manual. Okay, we have a motion and a second, and then we'll go to Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it would be wise for us to have our Human Resources Director, Nick Stroop, just come and share a little bit about what our conversation was at Legal and Finance Committee meeting, and to make sure everybody's understanding what is removed from this and what stays in place. So,
you know, there's actually, if you look at the Legal and Finance, there's a revised, so you're approving really, I think the intent of the motion is to approve the revised.
So I'm requesting that the HR director tell us that too. So would you mind, if it's okay with the mayor, Nick Stroop, would you mind just sharing briefly a summary of those changes?
Thank you. So what we did at Legal and Finance is there was some proposed language about, is this on? There was some proposed language about our retiree health insurance, and that has been subsequently sent through the legislature. And so now we are going to bargain with our union partners and our non-union employees to create a grandfather list for our retiree health insurance and some of those changes. And so we took that piece out of the proposed changes to the non-union guide because the rest of the changes are ready to go and set, and we know it's going to take a few weeks to get with all our union partners, get some bargaining sessions in, and get this set, but there's no reason to hold up the two documents just for this one piece, which we know we're going to have to tackle separately. So I appreciate that, Councilman Solomon, because that was the discussion at the last Legal and Finance Committee.
And thank you very much. And just to be clear with the motion maker and the seconder, that you understand that's the revisions that we're talking about? Yep. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval of item 44. All in favor of that item, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. On to community development items. Item 45, a request by Dream Design International for David Lamb and Andrea Anderson Revocable Trust, E.M. Hoff Family Ranch Limited Partnership, and Marvin and Kay Paschke for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 1 through 7 of Block 1, lots 1 through 5 of Block 2, lots 1 through 8 of Block 3 of Black Hills Industrial Center subdivision, generally described as being located southeast of the intersection of Highway 79 and Old Folsom Road. And the recommendation from committee is to approve with stipulations. We have a motion from Pat Jones to approve with stipulations, seconded by Roberts. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 46, a request by Renner Associates LLC for Lilac Flowers LLC for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed Tract J of Wesleyan Christian Center, generally described as being located northeast of the current terminus of Wesleyan Boulevard. And again, the recommendation is to approve with stipulations. I have a motion by Nordstrom to approve with stipulations and a second by Pat Jones. All in favor of that motion on item 46, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That'll take us down to public hearing items 47 through 52. There are no speaker requests on this, so we'll not have a public hearing. So then we'll open up consent public hearing items 47 through 51. Will the council have a motion? Motion to approve. Have a motion by Roberts to approve all consent public hearing items 47 through 51, seconded by Jason Solomon. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Non-consent public hearing items, item 52. Approve resolution 2022-009, a request by C.R. Lloyd Associates for Block 5 to create a tax increment district number 85 and approve resolution 2022-010. And the recommendation is to continue this to the March 30th Legal Finance meeting and the April 4th City Council meeting. Okay, motion to continue by Nordstrom, second by Evans. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 53 is the bill list. And for that, we'll go to Chief Financial Officer, Finance Director Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are no additions to the bill list, so the total is that which is attached at $6,197,561.82.
Motion to approve, Solomon. Second, Jones. All in favor of approving the bill list, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Adjourned by Jones. Second by Weifenbach. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
You are the last party in the conference. You will hear silence until the conference begins.